welcome, Hoosier fans, to another disappointed road episode of the Assembly Call. As today, your Indiana Hoosiers fall by 9 points, 68-59 to the Ohio State Buckeyes. The loss drops Indiana to 15-7 on the season, 5-6 in the conference. And, you know, it was just another one of those second halves where Indiana, for a long stretch, was just unable to get anything going offensively. Ohio State at one point pushed the lead out all the way to 18. And to Indiana's credit, they were able to battle back, get this thing within single digits. We've certainly seen other road games where they have just completely faltered and not fallen back. So if you want to take a small bit of solace in the second half performance, you can look at that. But ultimately, it was another non-competitive road game for these Indiana Hoosiers, and they fall again, in disappointing fashion. I'm your host, Jerod Morris, here with Ryan Phillips and our special guest co-host today, Mark Titus from the Titus and Tate podcast, and we are going to break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. And let's start this show the way we start every show, and that is with our banner moment. And, you know, really just not a lot of moments to choose today for Indiana. But I'm going to go back to the second half when it was 51-37, and Jerome Hunter, who had already made a three-pointer earlier in the second half, had a nice little drive, took some contact, made the shot, and then was able to make the free throw. And at a time when things aren't really going right for Indiana, not a lot of energy, Jerome really provided, you know, a little bit of a spark, showed that enthusiasm that we like to see from him. That ended up being his 9th point of the game. But what I liked even more than that bucket from him and kind of the offensive versatility that it showed was on the next defensive possession down. I thought he had one of his best possessions just in terms of being aware and his positioning on defense and stopping a cutter. It was a stark contrast from what we saw in the first half. The one play especially, you know, when he just got caught completely watching the ball. Arns went back door on him for a wide open layup. It was nice improvement within the game for Jerome. And I think as we go forward in this season, you know, I think we've now reached the point, you know, with this team, with Jerome's health, with his development, and with the play of some other guys, that I think you have to play him as many minutes as he can handle, because what he gives offensively with his inside-outside ability as a shooter and just the consistent energy and enthusiasm he brings. He makes mistakes. He loses his awareness sometimes on both offense and defense. That's going to happen for a freshman. But he brings skills that not a lot of other guys have, and he doesn't make mistakes of effort. He's always playing hard. He always seems like he's having fun out there. And for a team that just seems to really struggle to bring that on a game-in, game-out basis, you notice it when he's out there on the court. And hopefully, you know, obviously, you know, Indiana missed him in the Penn State game. He was ill. He was able to get back into it today. And so on a day when there weren't many bright spots for Indiana, I thought Jerome was at least one of them. All right, our banner moment, as always, brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, a company that was founded by an IU grad that remains based in Indianapolis. And they have over 60-plus schools on their website. But IU was their first school. They remain huge supporters of IU athletics. And, you know, so certainly you should go check out their website for that reason. But the most important reason that you should go to Home Field Apparel and that you should buy one of their T-shirts or one of their long-sleeve tees or one of their crew necks or one of their hoodies is that, number one, they have the most comfortable material that you are going to find. It is just so comfortable. It maintains its comfort even after you wash it. And they have unique logos that you're not going to find anywhere else, from the Script Indiana to the Bison logo to the Shoes basketball logo. If you're an IU football fan, they obviously have a lot of IU football logos that they rolled out during this season. So it's comfortable, it's unique, you're supporting IU grads and an Indiana-based business. So many reasons to go to Home Field Apparel and get that gear. And because you're a member of the Assembly Call audience, you get a massive discount when you order at homefieldapparel.com. Use the promo code ASSEMBLY20 at checkout, and you will get 20% off your entire order. That's ASSEMBLY20 for 20% off your order. Go to homefieldapparel.com today. Get the most unique and comfortable IU apparel anywhere. All right, well, it is time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. And ladies and gentlemen, we will start with a man who grew up an IU fan. He went to Ohio State. He hosts the Ron Artest of College Basketball podcast because it keeps changing its name. He is Mark Titus. Mark, what are your opening thoughts on this Indiana-Ohio State game?
I don't understand why you guys are so sad. You guys seem very somber about what just happened. Ohio State looked like the best team in the country when I went and saw them play in Vegas against Kentucky. John Calipari said that we were the best team in the country. Ever since then, the wheels have completely fallen off. Our only two wins since that game have been, I think, against Nebraska and Northwestern, which don't even count. This is the best Ohio State has played since I saw them in Vegas, and that was December 21st, and it is now February. So basically the entire month of January, was pretty horrible. And the Buckeyes are back. So I personally don't have a problem with what happened. I do cheer for Indiana. If you're new to my shtick or my background, I will cheer for Indiana every single time they play, except when they play Ohio State. So it's always a conflicting day for me to cheer against the Hoosiers, but I'm happy with the result today for sure.
Yes, I'm sure you are. A much needed win for the Buckeyes. All right, Ryan, over to you. I have a feeling that your thoughts on this game will be much more somber than Mark's were.
Yeah, a little bit. Welcome, Mark, but shut up now. No, look, the issue for me in this one was that Indiana just got outworked. And they got outworked. They got out-hustled. They had a lack of focus. I mean, when you give up 11 offensive rebounds, look, I know Caleb Wesson's really good, and when he has a good game, it's tough to stop him. But the dude had 5 offensive rebounds, and Ohio State had 11. For a team in Indiana where one of their big things is rebounding is effort and focus and just staying with your guy and staying in front of your guy, between your guy and the ball. Occasionally, you're going to get some long rebounds that bounce funny, and you can't do anything about that. But this was just an effort thing for Indiana and all day, and it was embarrassing to watch as an Indiana fan. You just, because Indiana is supposed to be a team that outworks other teams. It's supposed to do the fundamentals well. It's supposed to, focus on the glass and focus on the paint and all those things. Got beaten in the paint. What was it? Oh, I guess it wound up being 26-20. It was wider than that till the end. Ohio State hit 10 threes and beat them in the paint. I mean, you can't win when you do that. You just can't. And so Indiana really had nothing to hang their hat on in this game. And they came out and, the first couple of minutes looked like they were going to make it a game. And then as the first half went on, it was clear it was going to be one of those road games where Indiana just kind of wilts and falls apart. And we've seen it repeatedly this year and repeatedly the last 2 years, that Indiana just can't maintain its focus for 40 minutes, can't maintain its toughness, and the effort just isn't there. When the effort isn't there from guys who aren't talented enough to win on talent alone, that's a problem, and you're going to get beat in conference. And the final score wound up making it look a lot closer than it really was. I mean, this felt like a 20-point game. It wound up being 68-59, but let's be real. Those were a lot of garbage time points being scored by Indiana. So you've got this team that could have been 16-4, had a 6-point lead with 1:10 to go against Maryland and blew that game at home, which was inexcusable, and then goes on the road and doesn't show up against Penn State in the second half and doesn't really show any effort today. You got a 3-game losing streak, and now you've got a week off before you face Purdue, and who knows what can happen in a Purdue game. You never know what's going to happen against your rivals. So this could be a really, really bad situation for Indiana, and they need to use this week to really refocus, and I think Archie Miller needs to send a message that a lack of effort is not going to be tolerated anymore. And it has been, honestly, for part of the year, because he has no options in the backcourt and he has, had dealt with injuries up front. But at this point, you can't, it's this far into the season, you can't have performances like this.
Yeah. So, Mark, you mentioned that, Ohio State played as well as they've played in over a month today. And I'm curious, what, as you were watching this game, did this look more like Ohio State playing really well or Indiana playing bad, a combination of both? Because to me, especially in the first half, we know about Indiana's offensive struggles. They've had them all year. But I really thought defensively, I was really disappointed in Indiana in the first half. It felt like Ohio State was, moving the ball. They were moving and cutting and basically just waiting for Indiana to screw up, and Indiana would, either just because of a lack of focus or just not getting out quick enough. And that to me is where the game was lost, and it was really disappointing.
Yeah. I think it was a combination of both, but I think it started with Indiana's effort. I think Ohio State started getting some easy stuff, started getting their flow going. Caleb plays well. Feels like every time Caleb plays Indiana, he has a good game. But some of the other guys, I mean, last time we played Indiana, we were throwing the ball all over the gym at Assembly Hall this year. And I think like having Indiana kind of come out flat and things were kind of going well for Ohio State, you could just see our guys' confidence going through the roof. Like, we didn't shoot the ball that well in the first half at all. No. But we could get the ball wherever we wanted, and we knew that those shots were going to fall in the second half, it looked like. And I think it started with Indiana's effort. And I think, like, to your point, like I've come on this program, I don't know how many years in a row we've been doing this, where I come on after the Ohio State game, and I feel like I'm a broken record. First of all, I feel like I always pick the right game to come on, because I do feel like Ohio State wins more often than that. But I feel like a broken record, because we always talk about like the staples of Indiana basketball that are non-negotiable to people. And this has been an interesting season for me to watch Indiana, because when I talk to my family and friends that are Indiana fans, like the sky is falling. I guess that's kind of the perpetual state of Indiana basketball fandom at this point.
It's been that way for 30 years now.
Yeah, right.
Much.
But you look at like Indiana's they don't have any bad losses this year. The Hoosiers, like every team that Indiana's lost to is probably going to make the tournament. I know we don't want to hang a banner for that. That's not something we're exactly
Sure,
shooting fireworks over, but it's not like, they're not losing to Stephen F. Austin at home like Duke.
I mean, it does represent progress, sadly.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want to understand, like, why is it that the fan base is so frustrated? Like, what is it about this team then? Because it feels like, if you're an outsider looking in, it feels like things are kind of progressing. But the two things, and I will say this always about Indiana, that are non-negotiable is effort. And that is something that Ryan, as Ryan said, like, every Indiana team for that all of us grew up watching is busting their ass out there. So anytime like Indiana's not bringing an effort, the alarm bells are going off. And number two, it's very, very bizarre to watch an Indiana team struggle shooting the ball so badly, because that is like the one thing. I live out in California now. I have to explain to people why basketball matters to me, especially college basketball, so much, because it does not matter to these people out here. And even UCLA being as great as they are, people don't care about college basketball here. So I have to explain. I'm like, yeah, I grew up in Indiana. Like, what is Indiana basketball? I was like, have you seen the movie Hoosiers? Jimmy Chitwood. Like, shooting is what Indiana does well. Just don't watch Indiana this year. That's
yeah.
But it's really bizarre, because those to me are two things that, like, if you're turning the game on, it's like Indiana could win 10 games a season, but they're going to play hard. They're going to have guys out there that can at least shoot. That maybe they can't move their feet, maybe they can't touch the rim, but damn it, they can hit threes and they can move the ball. And it's bizarre to see a team that can't do that. But on the other side, they do enough well that, like, I don't think this Indiana team is horrible. They're going to make the tournament comfortably, I think. They're still better than the Big Ten that Ohio State is currently. And Ohio State, I think, is much more talented in terms of, like, raw talent on the roster. So it's an interesting season for sure.
Well, so I think you kind of hinted at something that's really important, because you're right. Indiana's 15-7. They're 5-6 in the conference, but they've got some home games left. I mean, they are still on track for essentially what we all thought was the standard for this season, which is to make an NCAA tournament. And that's an important macro point to make. But to your point, Indiana has no bad losses, but they've lost badly. And I think that's the issue for fans, is there are times in a game offensively where it feels like we don't have a clue and we don't know what we're doing. And then, as soon as you get comfortable with something being a strength, like the rebounding, because today Indiana was 7 of 12 from 3, 14 of 18 from the free throw line. If you told me that, I would have thought we were winning this game. And then they come out, and the one thing that they've really been able to do, rebound, they can't do.
Even in bad losses, they've rebounded.
Yeah. And then the other thing that they've tried to hang their hat on, which is defense, because Archie, he's wanted the identity of this program to be, we're going to be hard-nosed on defense. We're going to rebound. We're going to do those little things. And today, to just not see it there, I'm curious, as a guy who played for Archie, who knows Archie, and can see this from a former player's perspective. Like, are you surprised that Indiana still has those issues? Do you think that's more of a personnel thing or a coach thing? And what can he do about it?
I don't think it's a coach thing. I mean, I'll defend Archie more than most, because I love Arch, but I do know that is, like, I mean, part of the reason that Indiana can't shoot is because Arch emphasizes rebounding and defense and toughness. Like, he's that kind of guy. That's his DNA. So, like, at a certain point, I'm sure. I mean, they were showing shots of him on the sideline. He looked like he just had no clue what to do today. He's like, I don't know what else to tell these guys.
At one point, he threw up his hands and sat on the bench. Like,
you're like. And I think it's really easy to blame coaches for a lot of this stuff, but I think effort is always the one thing. Whenever there's a problem with effort, it for me at least, it always will fall on the players, because that is, like, non-negotiable. That is, as you said, even in bad losses this year, Indiana still plays hard, and I think that's something that, like, I don't know that I shouldn't speak for all Indiana fans, but I feel like that is something that I like to envision a world where, like, Indiana can lose and IU fans can still be okay with it, because they're like, we played hard today, shots just weren't falling, or, like, a guy on the other team was just hot, that sort of thing. But when you have days like this where there's just no effort, it really does leave a bad taste in your mouth. And I don't necessarily think that's a coaching thing, because just knowing Arch and being around Arch, I mean, this is a guy. The one story I've told ad nauseum about Archie when I was at Ohio State playing for him was he was the only coach I ever had in my life that treated me the exact same as every other player, which is to say that, like, usually we would be going through drills And all the other coaches would say, like, Titus, you can just go sit on the side. Like, we don't really need you for this one. And Arch would be like, get your ass in. If you're on the team, you're doing this drill, and I am going to scream at you like you're the All-American on the team. I don't care who you are. He was that way at all times, and I assume he's the same way coaching at Indiana. So I don't think it's like Arch. I don't think his pregame speech was like, go out there and just kind of have some fun today, guys. I think his pregame speech was probably like, play your ass off, and I don't think the message got through today for whatever reason.
Well, and this kind of leads to the conversation that we've been having. We talked about it last night or 2 nights ago on our radio show, Ryan, which is, at what point is enough? And at what point do you just, do you sit guys down and do you say, look, this is not up to the standard. And if we have to play, if we have to put walk-ons in there when the game is out of hand or whatever, like we haven't come up with a good answer for it. We just know that it kind of feels like there are times in these games where it's like, okay, this is substandard. We know what we're watching isn't up to the standard that this needs to be, and yet it doesn't really feel like there are consistent consequences from a playing time perspective. Like, do you think that fans overrate that kind of stuff, or do you think that and you don't want to overreact when a team is 5-7 and you still have all those goals in front of you? So we're trying to keep it in perspective, and yet you keep having these kind of performances on the road. So we're just kind of searching for answers for how that gets better.
Yeah, I think the other thing we got to do is take this entire season into context and just look at the whole landscape of college basketball, which is that, Indiana has the problems with consistency, obviously, but this is true of every team in the country. This is it's become very frustrating for a guy like me who is supposed to like cling to narratives, and you're looking for things that you can just comfortably decide that like this is a universal truth of this season of college basketball, that like for last year, for example, no matter how many games Duke loses, we know that Duke team with Zion and all those guys is going to have to be reckoned with come March. At some point, right, someone's going to have to reckon with all that. This year, I have no idea. Nobody has any idea. So I feel like, the silver lining in this for Indiana fans would be, and I'm kind of like trying to remind myself of this Ohio State fan, as a guy who watched Ohio State. As I said, when we beat Kentucky, I was like, we're the best team in the country. We're going to win the title. And it's been kind of up and down since then, mostly down. You kind of have to step back and realize that this is just a really, really bizarre season. And Indiana would be, in my view, Indiana is by far the 4th best team in the ACC, if you think about it that way. The ACC is horrible. If I said it like that, you'd be like, I don't know, that's a pretty good season, right? That Indiana, if they were in the ACC, they'd probably be the 4th best team. But it's just, that's just kind of the landscape of college basketball for whatever reason. The line moved back. I don't know if that's why Indiana's missing so many shots, but you look around the country, some of these box scores, you only have to watch the games. Just pick any random box score and look at the 3-point shooting percentage. It's horrible. A lot of teams are struggling with shooting. A lot of teams are struggling with roster turnover, and they're transferring is obviously, some people say epidemic. Whatever it is, it's going up at a higher rate. It's kind of creating some turnover. So the sport is just in a weird place. And I think when you stop and look back at that, it's a little bit easier to kind of digest where Indiana's arrived. I know IU fans don't want to hear that, but it's not like this is a problem that is unique to Indiana. It's not like Indiana fans are scratching their heads and every other fan base is like, thank God we have it figured out because our team is rolling. Every single team is like, what is this season and what the hell is going to happen in March? And that's great because I think like that's why I'm falling back on IU is definitely going to make the tournament. Knock on wood, barring some catastrophe, they're going to be comfortably in the tournament. I really do feel like this is the one season I remember in my life that simply making the tournament is fine because I'm looking at it like Ohio State's projected to be an 8 or 9 seed right now. I'm licking my lips thinking, I hope to God we get put in San Diego State's bracket and we get to play them.
Hey, watch it.
Yeah. We're gonna
San Diego native here. So.
Well, San Diego State has 2014 Wichita State written all over them where they played Kentucky in the second round. And it's Ohio State. I don't know. Ohio State is much more talented than San Diego State. But
for sure.
The point is like the gap between the guys at the top and like even the 50th best team is very, very small this year. So I don't know. I'm just trying to talk everyone off a ledge. Don't get caught up in like one game because I really feel like IU's lost 3 in a row. And typically in a college basketball season, the team loses 3 in a row. It's cause for panic. It's like, oh my God, this season is going off the rails. But if you look around the country, it's like, is there a single fan base that there is? Are there more than 5 fan bases right now that are like, I really like where we're at? I don't think there are. So yeah.
Well, it's worth noticing on that sort of line of thinking that Wisconsin is hammering Michigan State right now at home. So, they're up. I guess they're up 9 now in the second half. But
Two days ago, Wisconsin fans thought the sky was falling because Brad Davison suspended, Kobe King is transferring, Greg Gard has to get fired. I mean, that's just what college basketball. It's.
I mean, if we just come out next
definitive take, because as soon as you do, you're an idiot 2 days later. You know.
Well, it's part of the challenge of what we do doing a post-game show after every game is you kind of dive into the macro, the micro elements of the game, and if it was a bad game, it's going to sound very negative. But we all know, Indiana goes out, plays really well against Purdue next week, and gets that win. You can get the momentum going back. This has just been a particularly bad stretch because of the collapse against Maryland and 2 straight road losses where I think Indiana fans were just like literally. I think, look, we all hoped that we would win one of these games, clearly. But I think more than anything...
Especially after the Maryland loss.
Yes. But I think more than anything, what Indiana fans wanted out of these 2 games, and I even saw it, I put up a poll in our community, it was like, let's just go compete for 40 minutes and have a chance to win at the end, even if we lose. And to not do that and to not really show a lot of progress on the road is, I think, why people are pretty disappointed right now. But we have more home games than road games coming up, so that's that's the positive to take away.
Here's the disappointing thing from an Indiana fan that I've noticed, and I've noticed from a lot of Indiana fans, is the upperclassmen provide no consistency or leadership, and that's what you lean on at Indiana. You lean on those guys, but even if they're when Cody Zeller was a sophomore, it felt like he was an upperclassman because he was a guy you could lean on. And Victor Oladipo, when he was a junior, you felt like you could lean on that guy at any time. Jordan Hulls was that way as well. I'm just obviously talking about recent history. But, I mean, you get no consistency out of Al Durham, Justin Smith. I mean, even Joey Brunk the last couple games where we beat Michigan State, everybody was like, that's the guy you're leaning on. Like he's tough. He'll always compete. He's been awful the last 2 games. I mean, straight up awful. And, guys go through bad stretches, obviously. But Devontae Green, no consistency. Deron Davis, I felt like can give you some good minutes, maybe 10 good minutes in a game. I thought that, he's been up and down all year. It's really hard when you're a team that has young players, I think, who have bought into what Archie's doing, and young players who appear to be slowly improving, like a Jerome Hunter. Race Thompson looked really good against Michigan State. Of course, he wound up injured again because that's just the way this program's been lately, is snake bitten. Trace Jackson Davis, guys like that who can do things and clearly are bought in and everything. And then you've got this group of upperclassmen who seem to be almost playing on a different team. And you don't get the consistency out of them. And of course, I mean, we know Rob Finnessy's kind of banged up, but you're not getting consistency out of him game to game. I think that's was the most disappointing thing to Indiana fans is, again, today, you just got nothing from your upperclassmen as far as consistency goes. And that you can't win on the road without consistency from your leadership, and to have no leadership and guys look to those guys for effort, for diving on the floor, for whatever it is, and you're not seeing it. And I think that's what is sort of like Archie's had these guys for, this is his 3rd season. Is he going to be able to change them? The answer is probably no. Because they just are who they are. But at some point, I think that you've got to either just take those guys off the floor or, find a way to get something out of them consistently, because without that, you're not going to win long term.
That's a great point. And one thing I think stands out between Indiana and Ohio State from, these are the 2 teams I've watched the most all season, is Ohio State. Even when Ohio State is struggling, and the whole month of January is basically a struggle, I knew watching every game that Caleb Wesson and probably Andre Wesson were both going to play certain, right, like maybe not well, not awesome, but they were gonna bring it to a certain level. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Ryan. There's like watching Indiana, you have no idea what's going to happen in any given game, who's going to step up, who's going to not. And that is frustrating. I think it's like worked out more often than not that like 2 or 3 guys find a way to step up, but there's not that one guy that you're like, all right, we got Purdue next week. We got a week off. We have Purdue. It's going to be at home. We know for sure that these 2 guys are going to bring it. You can't say that right now, and that is kind of a frustrating spot to be in.
Yeah.
It would be for any team, because you just have to lean on those guys, especially in college basketball. When guys are 18, they got to have somebody to look up to and set the example.
Yep. All right, let's take a break here. Coming up, as we continue our breakdown of Indiana's 9-point loss to Ohio State, I'll point out today's meaningful moment that you might have missed. And then we will go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from the game. You are listening to the Assembly Call with special guest host Mark Titus. Stick with us.
What's going on? It's Christian Wofford. What's the only thing better than an epic buzzer beater? Celebrating it with friends afterwards. Join my guys Jerod, Andy, Ryan, and Coach on the Assembly Call after every IU game. Go Hoosiers.
Thank you, Christian. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Jerod Morris here with Ryan Phillips and Mark Titus from the Titus and Tate podcast. You may remember him from Grantland, from The Ringer. Now with Fox, he is here joining us to break down Indiana's 9-point loss to the Ohio State Buckeyes. And guys, it's time for today's meaningful moment that you might have missed. And, the one that really stood out for me is in the second half with about 8.5 minutes to go, and you're kind of in that spot where if Indiana's going to make a run, it's got to come right now. And Al Durham drove in, and he'd had a couple of nice drives earlier in the game, whereas we've been talking about, when he drives and actually looks to score and looks to shoot instead of just to get fouled, good things happen because he's actually a pretty good finisher. But he drives in and certainly looked like he had a good opportunity to shoot the ball, but at the last second decides to try a little dump-off pass. It gets deflected. So instead of it being, maybe 52-42 or maybe getting fouled and having some free throws, Ohio State's got the ball. They go to the other end. They make a three. I think it was, one of those 2 threes that Arns made back-to-back. And at that point, it was 55-40. And to me, just viscerally, it kind of felt like game over. Not that it ever felt like Indiana was really coming back, but it felt like that was kind of like their last chance. Ohio State would make another three right after that, a 13-4 run. And, Mark, what this really indicated to me, and it's an issue Indiana's had all year with guards and their playmaking. And, look, Indiana's guards are limited. They aren't great shooters. They can do some things, but it just feels like at times they have opportunities to make a play, and it's like they shy away from it sometimes. Whether it's Rob Finney having an open lane but being a little skittish to drive in and kicking it out, or whether it's Al, not shooting, that shot, or on the other end, Devontae Green at times trying to do too much. Our guards have just really struggled, especially on the road, to find that balance between being aggressive, being playmakers, just going out and, going out to make basketball plays, and then just being real reticent and making a play like that really just kills you and stops any momentum. So, that Al's just got to go up and shoot that ball, and it really kills this team, and it makes it really hard to get any offensive continuity on the road when you can't count on your guards.
I wish Rob Finney had Devontae Green's confidence, and Devontae Green had Rob Finney's confidence.
Yeah, don't we all?
How did that happen? The older I get, the more college basketball I watch, and I think back on like my playing days, because I was probably, especially once I got to college, I was probably the least confident guy on earth. And not that I would have gotten minutes at Ohio State or anything, but I think back to it because like I was probably better than I realized. I was just I was a walk-on, so I was like, I can't shoot in practice. I just got to stay out of the way the whole time. And I think back on like guys who are good that aren't that good, if that makes sense. Like don't have a ton of talent, but like find ways to produce. And I really think it's like such a huge skill to have for a college basketball player to know exactly how good you are. Because there are guys, you have a guy like Devontae Green who at times it's like, what are you doing, dude? Rein it in. You're not as good as you think you are. Like we need to dial it back. And then I feel that way watching Rob Finney. I think Rob Finney is really, really talented. He could be one of the best guards in the Big Ten. He could develop into that certainly. But it doesn't look like Rob Finney believes that. It looks like Rob Finney is content with like just kind of being out there and pointing guys in the right direction, throwing a pass and kind of staying out of the way.
Moving it side to side.
Yeah, moving it. Yeah. He wants to someone told him a long time ago that the point guard is the straw that stirs the drink, and that's just what he's trying to do, is just kind of like, I get out there, I play a little defense, and it's like, Rob, we need someone who can shoot. That's what we need. We need some scoring out here. So yeah, that's a very interesting thing too, because I feel like the best teams are the teams where every single guy knows exactly, not just knows his role, but he knows exactly how good at his role he is, and when to be aggressive and when not to be. And I think Ohio State had a problem with that, honestly. Like as I was watching Ohio State play throughout January, there was a lot of like I don't know if it was like an ego problem, but I think a lot of guys were, after we beat Kentucky and after we had soared to the heights we'd soared to or whatever, a lot of guys seemed to think like, I'm the reason we're playing so well, because it was true. Like part of the reason that made Ohio State so good was that we were pretty deep, and every single guy, I think at the time we had like 7 or 8 guys averaging 8 or 9 points a game. And then the problem became is every single one of those 7 or 8 guys was like, I'm the reason we're winning. So I'm going to
flew too close to the sun.
Yeah. Instead of averaging 8 or 9, we're going to average 11 or 12. And I was like, we can't have that. There's only one ball. Someone's got to set screens out here, guys. So anyway.
Yeah, I will say, something else that stood out to me in the second half is, Rob knocked down a couple of shots. He knocked down that 3 early. He had like a 17-footer late. And they were probably 2 of the most confident shots that he's taken. And I was kind of hoping that he would step up more. Sometimes he gets it and you can tell he's hesitating for like a split second. Both of those shots were just in rhythm. He took them. He's never going to be an elite shooter, but he's a good shooter when he's confident and in rhythm. So and that's what we saw the first half against Ohio State at home when he knocked down those 3 threes. So if he can maybe carry some of that confidence from those shots, although then he didn't take another shot for like 13 minutes. So maybe I'm grasping at straws here,
well,
but
you can
that
tell
would be such a huge element for this team.
Yeah, sometimes when he goes up, you can tell he's trying to guide it into the basket instead of just ripping the shot off. Just snapping the wrist and firing it off with confidence. That's the one thing Jerome Hunter does, and he's done it even when he was bricking them early in the season. He just goes up and snaps off his shot. If it goes in, it goes in. And he's got that confidence, and even when he wasn't making them and probably didn't have reason for confidence, Finney doesn't have that. And you're right, Mark. He needs to really develop that I can do this kind of attitude, and the attitude that I am good at this, and this is something where I need to be a guy who goes and makes a difference, as opposed to just kind of, as you said, the guy who moves the chess pieces around. Yeah.
He definitely has his shot. Looks like he's shooting to hope he doesn't miss too badly instead of like shooting to make it. He's like, I hope this is I hope I just don't airball it. I hope I don't like smack it off the back.
Just trying to put it on the rim. Yeah,
just put it on there. I hope when this misses, because it is going to miss, I hope it just hits the back of the rim and looks like it was, is one of those things going on. It's like, just shoot the ball. It's going to go in. Think it's going to go in. And even if you miss, keep shooting. And I don't know.
Yeah,
they really need to sit each other. I need Devontae Green and Rob Finney to get in a room and just explain their mindsets to one another and try to find a way to like swap the approach to the game. And I think that's IU's problem. We need like a Freaky Friday situation with those.
Yes.
Or was that when there was a movie called like Vice Versa or something with Judge Reinhold where they like flipped?
Wow, throwing it back.
Was not expecting to get a Judge Reinhold reference on this podcast, but
or ever. Yes.
Weird things happen after bad losses.
The best part is you reference Judge Reinhold, and it had nothing to do with Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
No,
that's what's crazy.
Mark, did any particular moments? Is kind of the segment where we pick out little moments that maybe had a pivotal impact on the game or that kind of hint at some larger narrative. Anything jump out for you?
I mean, honestly, and I don't mean to put salt in your wounds. I kind of felt like this was over from the start. I could see Ohio State. I think it was the moment that Caleb had a seal. I want to say it was on Brunk.
Was
probably
really early in the game, and he sealed Joey Brunk, and they threw it over the top to him, and he laid it in. And I could just honestly, from that moment on, I thought Ohio State was going to win. And I know that's very easy to say in retrospect, but I just this was a game that Ohio State had to win. We needed this more than you guys did, believe it or not. We just, like I said, the only 2 wins Ohio State has had since December 21st, since Christmas, are Nebraska and Northwestern, which aren't even wins. Those are basically like scrimmages that they put on TV. So as soon as Caleb established position, we knew Caleb was going to have a big game, and then that to me was pretty much it. And then IU came out slow, and we kind of jumped out to big lead, and I was like, all right, I think we're going to be fine.
Yeah. No, I don't. I mean, there was never a moment where it felt like,
Indiana
I thought
play. Yeah, certainly.
I thought the first 5 minutes the teams were kind of feeling each other out, and I thought that, well, we haven't really. I thought Weston, obviously, as you said, it was clear early on he was going to have a good game. He was very focused, and I think he just knew the advantage being able to go inside out that he had on Brunk. That he was just going to tie Brunk in knots, and that's what he did. But I felt like that first 5 minutes they were kind of feeling each other out, and you could kind of see like, maybe Ohio State, maybe they won't shoot well today, and they'll just fall apart, and Indiana will sneak away with a win. But after about the first 5 minutes, it really felt like Indiana had no shot in this game.
Well, and when we could point out many moments, where Ohio State ran a ball screen, Indiana hard hedged, and things did not go well from there. Yeah. And, I'd like to get your thoughts on that, Mark, because, we talk about the pack line a lot, and it's easy to say like, well, Virginia runs the pack line defense, and they have a really good defense. And this is true. There's also a massive difference between, Mamadi Diakite and Jay Huff hedging a ball screen, guys who have great feet, are quick, can get back, and Joey Brunk, who is never going to hurt you because of effort, but there are just some things that he's physically not very good at. Same with Deron Davis. I mean, I'm not sure that you could design 2 players who seem less less suited for hard hedges than the two of those guys. And
we discussed this many times on this show.
And I get it. Archie's trying to build the defense that he wants to play come hell or high water, and I understand that. But at some, there come points in games like today where you're guarding Caleb Lesson where it's like, can we try something different? Because it's not working. So
this is the problem with the hard hedge. This is the problem with I've been Virginia's biggest supporter forever. When Virginia lost to UMBC, I was still like, I'm riding with these guys. I love Virginia basketball. I love their style of play. But the one problem that they always run into defensively is as you said, there's really no plan B. And when things aren't working, you're just like, you just kind of stare at the clock and you're like, we got 37 more minutes of this crap.
Yeah.
Especially in a game like today where you can tell right away that IU is going to have no answer for like Caleb Wesson. There is no plan B, and I don't, it kind of depends on your philosophy of basketball and coaching and all that. Because like on the one hand, like you said, you could say, well, Archie's going to just stick to his guns. This is his system. You don't want to start throwing all sorts of things against the wall, and because that creates a bunch of messes of its own. On the other hand, it is frustrating when over and over and over, you're like, Joey Brunk is not going to be a great ball screen hedger. He's just not. Like, we have enough evidence. We've seen it. This is not going to work. Why do we continue to try this? So I kind of see both sides, and that's why I don't get paid to coach. That's why no one will hire me to be a coach, because I don't have to. But yeah, that's definitely frustrating. I mean, like I said, I will always kind of err on the side of giving Archie the benefit of the doubt, especially with the pack line. Like, I think that is the one thing that is going to end up being good. I think like the defense, maybe not with this team, but eventually the pack line defense is going to bear itself out, because I mean, that's what, like, all the best defenses in college basketball, that's what you want is the pack line. Like, it's just perfectly suited for college basketball, especially as the 3-point line gets further away. Yep. Like, that is the one Achilles heel for Virginia has always been 3-point shooting. As teams get hot against them, they can't really like spread out and then
offensively they're not built to come from behind too. So
but as the 3-point line is moving out, like, teams can't shoot as well. And I think like the pack line is, I think long term the pack line is a great answer and is a great strategy. It's just with this personnel,
that's the issue, is we're 3 years in and you don't have the personnel to run it. You need more nimble big guys, and frankly, Indiana needs guards that can keep ball handlers in front of him. Rob Finney's pretty good at it. Devontae Green can be okay at it when he wants to be, but Al Durham is a flat-footed defender. He's just slow laterally. Like, he's just not good at it. And Armand is going to be a good defender, but isn't there yet.
He's a freshman.
So that's the issue. When you struggle with ball pressure, and you don't have big guys that are real mobile, you're going to have issues with the pack line defense.
Well, this is going to become a problem, I fear, for Archie. Is Tony Bennett has identified exactly the guys he wants to recruit. He knows exactly who he's going after. And he's done a great job of it, obviously. And the thing I fear is kind of a problem that Archie's brother has run into, Sean, which is you're living in both worlds, where you're recruiting for the pack line, but you also want to recruit like the best players in the country. Yeah. And you want to recruit, like, it's a must. It's very cool that Archie's landed 2 back-to-back Mr. Basketballs, And he's going to recruit. He's always going to recruit whoever the best players in Indiana are. He's going to get them, and that kind of has to happen without prejudice. Like, whoever's the best player in Indiana, you have to get him. Archie Miller. We expect that as an Indiana fan base. And I'm not saying that Trace Jackson Davis isn't great in the past. It's not I'm just saying, like, the recruiting strategy. Like, if you're Archie Miller, what is your recruiting strategy right now? Because you have to get the best players in the country, and IU fans want McDonald's All-Americans, but at the same time, you run this system where you need a certain type of personnel. Yep. And Tony Bennett has figured it out. He's figured it out to a science where he doesn't mind going after like a guy like DeAndre Hunter was not he was a good recruit. He certainly wasn't like a can't miss 5-star guy, and he became otherworldly for Virginia. And Ty Jerome and even Kyle Guy. I know that's a rough name for Indiana fans to hear, especially. Literally said I wanted to go to Indiana. But like Tony Bennett has identified kind of the talented guy, like where he wants to fall on that spectrum. And I feel the same way though when you watch like Arizona play, because like Sean runs the pack line as well, and it's the personnel doesn't always fit, and you have guys. Yeah,
it's a parade of 5-stars down there.
Yeah, he's bringing in 5-stars. And the other problem you run into is you have more roster turnover. Like, that's what Arizona's problem is more often than not. Is he brings in all the best players on the West Coast. They go to Arizona for a year or two, then they go pro. And the pack line, you can't do that. You got to have guys that are sticking around. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Again, I'm talking at like a macro level, not necessarily this particular roster. It's just it's going to be curious to see the decisions made on the recruiting trail, because I think the pack line can work, but you have to have the right personnel. And, that ultimately falls on Archie as well, because this is not the NBA. You do not have a GM that you can point to and say, make me a trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
until the transfer rule changes, then maybe you can.
There you go. Yeah.
Ryan, any moments jump out to you?
No, I think, as I said, after the first 5 minutes, it just felt like that was going to be Ohio State's game. I mean, even with, the announcers tried to make it seem interesting when Devontae Green hit that half quarter, to say, oh, it's under 9. You got to feel good about where you're at if you're Indiana. I did not feel good about where I was at if I was, as an Indiana fan. So, only getting 22 points in the first half, you're not going to win on the road.
Who were these announcers, by the way? Oh my God, they were horrible. Weren't they?
Hummel and
they were horrible. These guys was this their first game? Who hired these guys? Where'd they come from? I don't like them. I'm kidding.
Jason Benetti and the great Robbie Hummel. I have to say, listening to Robbie Hummel do a game after 2 games of having Seth Davis do color analysis, I can't even believe those two guys have the same nominal job, because Robbie Hummel was so much better.
Did you catch when Benetti asked Robbie who was the big, because Caleb, it was a stretch where like Caleb Weston's just being physical and leaning on guys like he always does. And he asked Robbie, who was the biggest guy you had to guard? And he says, DJ White. Yeah. And then Robbie goes, this hurt me as an Indiana fan. And I was playing at Ohio State at the time for the DJ White, Eric Gordon team. But then Robbie goes on this long rant or tangent about how good that team was. Just knowing he's twisting the knife into Indiana fans, like the Kelvin Sampson team, where like everything was rolling, and then Sampson gets the rug pulled out from under him, and Dockich takes over and all that. Robbie was just like, "Yeah, that team was so good. You had Armand Bassett and Eric Gordon, and they were like top. Yeah, I was waiting for him to just go, "What happened? I wonder what happened to that team."
But he's so likable as he's saying it,
I covered that game for a local newspaper in Indiana, so I remembered exactly what he was talking about, and I was like, "Oh God, that team is so good."
All right. Well, it is the point in the show where we talk numbers. I do not want to belabor this because they're ugly. We already talked about the rebounding. We talked about the shooting, which was surprisingly good. But, the big numbers that jump out to me, Indiana 7 for 15 on layups. And there were so many layups when it was a 10-point game, an 8-point game, that if you make it, it's like, okay, maybe this can get Indiana going, and they could just never make one of those. And then, I think there's some numbers that you look at, like you can look at this box score right now, and you see that Devontae Green had 13 points, 3 or 4 from downtown, +7 and +. That is as misleading as anything. I think Devontae Green has been the king of meaningless points against Ohio State, dating back to 2 years ago when Indiana gets down 20 and then he goes off for 20 points. It's fine. It's good to hit shots. And if he can carry it over, that's fine to see. But when the game was actually competitive, such that it was, Devontae was not a factor in the game. And so I do not put any stock. I put some stock into Indiana fighting and not letting an 18-point game become 30, because we've seen that. But, I don't give a whole lot of credit for the numbers that were racked up during that time. So that's somewhat hypocritical, I guess. But that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, and if you're going to look at plus minus, Devontae was the only person who was a plus. And
today, just don't. Just don't.
Yeah. Don't do it.
Any other numbers, Mark? Any numbers that and the other one that's really bad is 4 offensive rebounds. This Indiana team shoots badly enough; they have to get offensive rebounds. And when you get 4 offensive rebounds and you turn the ball over 13 times, your shot volume for a team that isn't a good shooting team, it's not nearly enough to win on the road. So that cooked Indiana's goose right there.
That was what stood out to me, was offensive rebounding. I thought Ohio State was brutal. Especially, I can't believe Kyle Young only had 3 rebounds. I can't believe I'm reading that right, because it felt like
he caused a few team rebounds by like deflecting the ball into somebody, because they had 5 team rebounds.
If you could give like a point system to like if like great rebounds were worth like 3 rebounds in the stat sheet, I feel like Kyle Young would have had like 15 rebounds today, because it felt like every single rebound he had was like jumping over 3 people, or like
it was just hustle, man.
He out hustled Indiana several times.
Yeah,
Trace got pulled in the second half because Kyle Young just out hustled him for a rebound.
Mm-hmm. That's what stood out to me. So yeah.
Ryan, this is your favorite segment. Anything you want to talk about?
I mean, we talked about rebound, 31-24 getting out rebound, then 11-4 in the offensive glass, and Mark's right. They were getting outworked, and again, we've harp on this since the beginning of the show, but when you show up on the road and you don't put in the requisite effort, you're going to lose and you're going to look bad doing it. And Indiana looked bad doing it today. I mean, a couple guys showed some life at times, but it's not consistent. You got to have 40 minutes of effort to win in the Big Ten, or don't even show up. I mean, it's not even worth it showing up. And Indiana didn't show up today.
The last number I'll talk about, Trace Jackson Davis's day. He led the team in minutes with 33, 7 points, 7 boards, 2 assists, 3 blocks. Like, that's a decent enough stat line. But I thought this was one of his worst games that he's played.
He only took 6 shots, too.
Yeah, and in the first half, I agree the guards didn't get him the ball, but he also has some games where he just doesn't demand it and doesn't work hard enough to get open, and so I thought that was part of it. And the 3 blocks were really nice, but at least 2 of those came on plays where he was really slow to react defensively and just didn't have awareness. Fortunately, he's athletic enough to make up for it, and that's pretty important, but he just seemed to be kind of like a half step off today. Like, it wasn't the same guy, the same high level of competitiveness we've seen. And Indiana's not good enough for their most talented player to kind of, only have, be in, halfway, not really fully engaged in the game. And so, we've praised him a lot, and rightfully so, because he's been really good. But today I just didn't think he was quite up to the task. So,
yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I also think that, on the road, a freshman in the middle of his freshman season, he needs somebody to help elevate him, and just didn't get that.
For sure.
We've talked again, the effort, the malaise of this team. I mean, you're gonna see a freshman kind of wilt under that scenario, because there's nothing like pumping them up and getting them focused. At home, you can get the crowd can help you, teammates can help you, whatever. But on the road, I mean, it's just when everybody else is down, he's going to play down. I think that's just the way it is for a freshman like that.
That is a fair point. All right, coming up on the assembly call, we are going to talk about handing out game balls. Not sure if we'll actually hand any out. Then we'll hit any other lingering storylines, and then look ahead to what's next for Indiana with that big game Saturday against Purdue. Then it'll be time for last call. Stick with us here on the assembly call.
Ethan Happ, and I never listen to the assembly call, especially the episodes that Ryan is on.
Thanks, Ethan. Sorry that Ryan is here today, so you can't listen. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Catch us live immediately following every IU basketball game, plus every Thursday night at our website, assemblycall.com. While you are there, make sure that you sign up for our free IU Hoops email newsletter. Over 7,000 of your fellow IU fans have subscribed. You can also text IU to 66866 to subscribe to the newsletter. That is IU to 66866. I'm Jerod Morris, here with Ryan Phillips and our special guest co-host today, Mark Titus, talking about Indiana's loss to Ohio State. This is the time in the show, Mark, when we usually hand out our game balls. Ryan has already let me know that he is protesting and is not going to hand out a game ball today, which that has happened. There was a game this year that we did not hand out a game ball. Ryan, do you want to?
No, I'll leave it for you guys, because I just was so put off by the effort today that I don't know if I can hand one out.
Mark, who gets you? Usually this is an Indiana game ball, but feel free to.
I want to stick to the format. I think, like as you said, like this was not anything. I think in a perfect world we would not be handing out game balls, but I'll give it to Jerome Hunter. How about that? He did have a little juice. He coming off this is his first game back, right? From what did he miss 2 games in a row? Was it
1 game? He was sick before the Penn State game.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He coming back playing for his hometown. He's from Pickerington, suburb of Columbus. I felt like he kind of wanted to show out. It didn't. I think in his mind he thought, I'm going to come out and score 30 and against Ohio State. It didn't exactly go that way.
I think that's in his mind every game.
Yeah. But he had 9 points and he was playing hard a little bit. Again, I'm grasping for straw. I'm trying to find something because it was
grading on a curve here. It's
no,
fine.
Jerome. I mean, Jerome is my pick too. In fact, he's really the only nominee for me because I just didn't think. I mean, I know Rob ended up scoring 11 points, but certainly not a game ball worthy performance from your point guard. So
Jerome had a couple
Jerome
tough
would get mine
rebounds too.
Yeah, and look, frankly, Jerome had some really bad defensive possessions in the first half. So we should be fair. I mean, but we've talked about that. That's going to happen with a freshman. But, oh, by the way, someone in the chat that's going along this, they want us to give a game ball to Mark for behaving yourself since we are on the radio. So some credit to you.
No swear words was my my resolution for 2020. So
wow. That's
yeah,
luck.
I found out that Greg Oden started a Cameo account, so I decided every time I swear on the air in any capacity, I'm putting $1 into a swear jar, and then I'm going to book Greg Oden Cameo accounts where he scolds me for cursing.
That's the perfect way to spend that money.
There you go.
Let's talk a little bit more about Jerome, because I think that's maybe the one storyline that we could dig into a little bit more. Obviously, a guy with a great, a really good recruiting pedigree. Losing him last year was a big issue for this team. What do you see in him? Because I still think that his development over the rest of the season is one of the most important things for this team, because he can be a huge part of this team getting more consistent offense and just having another, talented player to count on that brings that enthusiasm to the game. And the last two performances now against Maryland and today against Ohio State, you're starting to see it. Like, what do you see as his potential this year and long term?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's where Archie's found himself, is he's just looking for energy. He's looking for scoring. I think those are the two things, is guys that can consistently bring it. He's not without his faults, as you said. We covered that, defensive lapses, that kind of stuff. But he was highly thought of for a reason. I know Ohio State fans were kind of scratching their heads as to how he slips out of Columbus, Ohio, and goes to IU. But I think that's where Archie finds himself with Jerome Hunter. I don't really. I think you're just searching at this point for anybody that wants to be there and anybody that can score, and he's playing well right now. So yeah.
What would you do, like, lineup wise? Like, what's the 5-man Indiana lineup that you feel confident in when they're out?
Oh my God.
Sorry, I know it's kind of an impossible question, but
that's Ryan.
Like,
why do I have to?
Well, because Ryan's on here all the time. We always get Ryan's opinions.
I'll give you my 5. It would be Jordan Holes at the 1. I'd be pretty confident in that team. You put Chris Watford out there, maybe Zeller.
You just listed off all the people who do cameo, who do
right.
intros for our show.
Yeah, I did.
I mean, I think I have a love, like every other Indiana fan. I struggle with how much I like Devontae. My dad is a senior citizen, so obviously he hates Devontae Green. I think that's par for the course for every guy older than 60 years old in the state of Indiana. Thinks he turns the ball over too much and takes stupid shots. But this team, they just need, like, as I keep saying, they just need like a shot in the arm offensively. And when he gets going, like he did against Florida State, I have to remind my dad about that all the time. Like, this man, like, single-handedly won the game against Florida State, who is a top 10 team and doing pretty well. So I think I want him out there, which is, I guess, obviously I want Finney, I want Devontae Green.
Your game ball has been taken away by the fans in the chat, Mom, for saying that.
I know. This is the hardest question I think I've ever been asked on the air. Why did you not prepare me for this? Why did I not get like a heads up? Like, hey, by the way,
it's an ambush gotcha question.
I mean, it's a hard question.
We want Finney, we want Trace Jackson, Jay Davis. I think those are definite. I want Devontae Green because I believe in the best in people. I do not see the worst. I do not want your life is not dictated by your worst moments. I believe.
Wow, that's an uplifting moment on this show.
I'm an optimist. So
he's clearly the most talented scorer on the team. There's no question. It's just about getting consistency.
I like Joey Brunk, obviously, because when Joey Brunk against Michigan State shows up, that's magical. That is just a magical experience for everybody. As you said, he's not been playing well recently. I think he was checking Twitter a little too much after the Michigan State game. And then I'll throw Al in there just because he's technically the best shooter on the team, right? Like, statistic-wise from 3.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to rip on him too much because I think it's easy because he's the upperclassman and I think some part of you does want to see more from him, but I think he's being asked to do too much a lot of times, like from the fans in general. Like, I think he's like a guy who's like, I never came to IU thinking I was going to be the face of the franchise or like the senior leader of a team or anything. So, like, I don't know why you guys are expecting this from me. I think he's a role guy who can play his role pretty well. And the problem is IU needs some guys that are just like stars, and they really don't have any right now. So.
That is really well said. I mean, that has especially been an issue with the guards. And look, part of this goes back to the decision in the offseason to not bring in another guard and to roll with these 4 guys. But you've had injuries to Rob, injuries to Devontae Green, inconsistency, and it does feel like almost all of those guys is playing one peg up from where he should be.
Yeah, right.
It's like if Romeo comes back and he's your star guard, now everybody else can kind of settle into where they should be, and everybody's playing up, and they haven't. In the offseason, we talked ourselves into them taking that next step, and it just hasn't happened. And you are right that it is important for fans to remember that and not place an unfair expectation on a guy if he's in a spot that is difficult for him, Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, look, Al was a 3-star recruit with a lot of limitations. It's not like this was a 5-star guy. He was a guy that needed to develop. Now he had some nice tools to work with, but at some point he's going to hit his ceiling, and maybe we're there. That's the thing about when you bring in some of these guys, and Mark's right. You got to pick guys who are right for your system, and also balance that with finding the best players, because at some point, you need a Romeo Langford because you need a scorer on the team. Regardless of how he fits, you need a scorer. You need someone like that. Obviously, you're going to go after Romeo Langford. He was an Indiana guy who could score like crazy. And
he was really good last year.
And he was great last year. And so it's about, he's right. And some of these guys, Archie Miller was hired really late in the process, comes in, and there's a recruiting class already in. Do I think that he would have taken all of those guys if he was starting from scratch with recruiting? Probably not. But he was up against the wall, and he probably had the idea of, well, I can try and mold these guys as best I can, or I can start from scratch and recruit guys, most of whom are already committed. So I think that he had to make a decision with some of that. He made a decision, obviously, to keep the guys who were already on the team. And, whether or not he, hindsight's 2020, he probably was confident that he could get more out of those guys. And maybe he hasn't. Maybe those guys never turn a corner, but you have to make those decisions as a coach. And he probably knew as much as we did at that point, whether or not he could do it. It was just the confidence in the coach and the staff. And I think what I've seen from their development of the younger guys gives me hope that, he'll be able to do it with his own guys that he brings in and sells with his vision. But the upperclassmen, again, it's just, you just don't know what you're going to get. And again, you have to look back and think, would Archie Miller have recruited this guy? Would he have recruited this guy? Would he have recruited that guy?
Well,
because they don't fit.
Here's a great barometer for the dilemma of recruiting that Archie found himself in. If Caleb Swanigan is a junior in high school right now, is Archie Miller recruiting him? Because if Caleb Swanigan's coming out of high school right now, as we're talking about the packline defense, that is not a guy that's going to be hard hedging ball screens, and that is not a guy that you want running. But at the same time, Caleb Swanigan is Caleb Swanigan. We all know how good he is. He was Mr.
Sometimes
basketball.
You make the exception, yeah.
So yeah, it's like, what do you do? Because then if you miss on Caleb Swanigan, you just don't recruit him. IU fans are losing their minds, and they're like, how could you not go after Caleb? But then you bring him in, and he's not playing great defense. And Archie's like trying to run a system, but he doesn't really fit into the system. Those sorts of things are going to be interesting, because I find that fascinating as kind of time goes by in the Archie Miller era, and time will go by the way. I know a lot of people are I know you aren't that dumb, but
we're dumb, but we're not that dumb.
Look, Archie could miss the tournament this year. He's still coming back next year.
Yeah, he's still get another year.
He's I think he's going to be here
this
5
season,
years minimum.
I got asked on the radio yesterday. It's like, what are your thoughts overall? How things are going? It's like, things are fine. Basically things are exactly at the beginning of the season. If you said, where does Indiana need to be right now to feel okay about things? 15-7, 5-6, and you're going back home with all the holes that this team has. Most of us probably would have taken that. So it's fine. We're in the midst of a bad stretch. We haven't proven we can do things on the road. There are clear deficiencies, obvious deficiencies, but we're still okay and on track for the tournament, and I think everybody would say that's a success. Now, we have to get there. Nothing is guaranteed, but things are fine, and it would represent the third straight year of progress under Archie, albeit slowly and more slowly than everybody hoped, but progress nonetheless.
Jerod, say things are fine one more time. You might actually believe.
Hey,
things are fine.
They're fine.
Everything's fine.
For fans of The Wire, right now it's a 40-degree day. All right. It is a 40-degree day. It's not a 30-degree day where we're upset, and it's not a 50-degree day where we're almost barbecuing. But it's a 40-degree day right now.
By the way, my favorite of all the like tweets that have come out about Kobe since he passed away was someone tweeted, Kobe rolling up to the pickup games in heaven, and it was the shot of Omar from The Wire where all the kids just go like scattering around and he's got the gun. I thought that is pretty much perfect. All right, so coming up we have Assembly Call Radio on Thursday, and then we're going to be in Bloomington. So we're getting in Friday night. We will be there for the IU Purdue game on Saturday, and then we're doing a live post-game show at Switchyard Brewery. Probably start about an hour after the game because we have to get out and hurry over there. So if you're going to be in Bloomington, let us know. We'd love to meet you at the game. We'd love to meet you at Switchyard Brewery. That's going to be a really, really fun time. Mark, what are your expectations for that game? Because Purdue has been, maybe the most Jekyll and Hyde team in the country in terms of the splits between home and road. I'm going to be entering that game with some confidence because of that. But as Ryan said, anything can happen in a rivalry game. So
Purdue is officially the best team in the country that doesn't win.
That's a good call.
Ken Pom loves them. What are they, like 11-10 or something? Or they were at one point, I think. And they're like 24th on Ken Pom or something like that. I don't know. Who knows? This is college basketball as a whole, and it makes it fun, but it makes it really frustrating for guys like us that have to do this for a living and kind of offer up opinions and all that kind of stuff. Who the hell knows? Who knows going into any game what's going to happen? True. We don't. Devontae Green might score 45 against Purdue. He might kick the ball into the stands and like quit at halftime. Like I've reached the point where like I really don't know. I feel confident that it's at home, as you said. Home teams in the Big Ten have been playing a lot. Obviously, it's every single broadcast you watch in Big Ten basketball, they're hammering the stats and how hard it is to win on the road this year. I like Indiana's chances. I think Indiana has the better team than Purdue, to be honest with you. But mostly it's at home, and that seems to be like worth 10 points in Big Ten games this year. So
it really does. It really does. All right. Remember, because you're an Assembly Call listener, you get 20% off your entire order at homefieldapparel.com with the promo code Assembly20. So if you want a great deal on the most comfortable and unique IU apparel that you will find anywhere, go to homefieldapparel.com, use that promo code Assembly20, get 20% off your entire order. Gentlemen, it is time for last call. Ryan, why don't you go first? Your final thoughts on another Indiana road loss.
Yeah, I think all three of us sort of summed it up the same way. It's just when you have a lack of focus and effort on the road, you're not going to win in the Big Ten. And Indiana just had a lack of focus and effort. And the issue isn't today. It's that we've seen that repeatedly this season and in the past couple seasons. So I jokingly once said maybe Archie should just change up what they do when they go on the road. And the only road game they've won was against Nebraska, where because of a snowstorm, they arrived the day of the game and didn't have all their pregame stuff. It's worth thinking about, Archie.
I'm thinking playing Nebraska had the bigger issue to do that.
But you know what? I like thinking that I'm right. So we're just going to ignore that part of it. But no, there's something that goes on with this team on the road. And it, as Mark pointed out, it's happening all over college basketball this year. And it's happening certainly all over the Big Ten. So you want to just see the effort. I don't care if they lose on the road because everybody's losing on the road. I want to win, but if they lose, at least want to see that effort, and I at least want to see that intensity, and I at least want to see a guy like Joey Brunk leading from the front. I want to see, Rob Finney showing some confidence and trying to lift up his team, and what I really want to see? I want to see somebody grab the rest of the players in a huddle and try and fire them up and try and guide them and stuff. And you just don't see that leadership from IU. Everybody is looking towards Archie. They're not looking to any guides on the floor to sort of focus everybody and get everybody, to take their game up a level. And that's, to me, a pretty big indictment of where this roster is. So, somebody's got to step up at some point because things just are going in a bad direction for this team. Hopefully the week off gives them a chance to just sort of recenter and refocus. Because they need it right now, certainly on a 3-game losing streak.
Mark, last call.
Yeah, I'm gonna do my Ohio State thing and just say first I'm gonna get the Ohio State part out of the way and say this was much needed. I'm very, very happy that Ohio State got the W. I cannot thank Archie enough for coming back to Ohio State where he was an assistant and very kindly he identified, he knew what was going on. He knew that we needed to win more than IU did, and he said, "Here you guys go, take the win." Which is why I think he gave up in the second half and sat on the bench, and it was like this was the plan all along. All right, so my IU perspective is this. My final thought is this. I think this team is frustrating as hell, just like every other Indiana fan. But I think the problem with Indiana basketball, and this is, since Bob Knight was fired, it's no secret. Can we get back on track? Can IU ever get back to what they were? I feels like people want to hit the panic button too quickly. And this isn't even me defending Archie Miller. It's just me defending the idea of patience, of like seeing the bigger picture, of like pulling out, and instead of looking at 3-game losing streaks and saying, okay, now we got to try something new. Just kind of take a step back, examine the whole landscape of college basketball. Notice that, yes, there are a lot of problems with IU, but there are a lot of problems with everybody. And is sort of the plan falling into place? And I don't know if it is or not, but I don't think losing 3 in a row in the Big Ten this year is cause for like mass hysteria, panic, like, oh my God, Indiana's never going to win a national title. We're never going to a Final Four again. It could happen this year, honestly. Like it would not surprise me. I really genuinely mean this. If this Indiana team made the Final Four this year, I would not be shocked. I would be surprised. I would not be like, how did that happen? Because that's just the year we're having. So I think the direction of the program is fine, just in the sense of like college basketball as a whole is in a really weird place, especially with like all the player likeness type stuff. Like who knows what's going to come of that, how that's all going to shake out, and if that'll help Indiana, because Indiana's an Adidas school now. I'm just saying, like Kansas has some problems, right? Kansas is going to get hard. Adidas is going to want to funnel their money somewhere. I'm just trying to, connect some dots here.
Not saying, just saying.
I'm just saying.
Bags of cash.
Yeah, there we go. So as I'm stepping back and looking at the big picture, like I think there's a path to like an upward trajectory, but no one wants to hear that when you're on a 3-game losing streak. It's just weird because like my dad will call me. My dad's like calling me during the show, like wanting to complain about Indiana. I have to tell him like, Dad, it's not the 80s. It's not the night. Like college basketball's changed. Yes, Indiana is, they're 15-7 now. That's not great. We're not gonna applaud that, but let's just calm down and see the bigger picture here. So that's my final thought. But again, I said I'm an optimist. I'm a guy who believes in Devontae Green, so take my opinion with a grain of salt.
No, I echo a lot of what Mark said. I think for a lot of us, what we wanted to see after an encouraging 2-game homestand against Michigan State and Maryland, despite the way that Maryland game ended, was, okay, is this team now ready to take the next step on the road? And even if you don't win, do you compete and do you play better? And the lesson that we learned this week is that the answer to that is no. And so, what does that mean moving forward? Well, Indiana has 4 more road games. They play at Michigan, at Minnesota, at Purdue, at Illinois. Certainly Purdue and Illinois, seem like extremely tough places to win because of just how those teams have played there and how good Illinois seems to be this year. Michigan and Minnesota both seem like winnable games. But when you see the performances that Indiana puts out at Penn State and at Ohio State, winning on the road feels next to impossible. So, they're going to have to get better on the road. But they have 5 more home games. And if they win their home games and they finish with 10 wins in conference play and they get to 20 victories overall, this team's going to the tournament. And so as frustrating as these last few games have been, things are still okay. And Indiana is still essentially right where they need to be. Now, they got to go home and take care of business. They got to beat Purdue, and this Iowa team has been playing much better. And, it's February, so the Fran February fade could be in effect, and hopefully it starts then, but it hasn't yet. And so these are going to be 2 tough games. But now what Indiana has done by losing the Maryland game and then losing these 2 road games like they did is they've given themselves no margin for error. And so they've got to come out. They've got to win these 2 games. I think it's fair to be confident that they can do it. But, now we got to see this team go out there and do it. So a disappointing effort in Columbus, but now Indiana has a week off. Saw a tweet from Zach Osterman quoting Archie in the postgame press conference, and every season the story's never written until the end, but we're going to have to change paths here and change how we're playing. Echoes kind of what he said after the Northwestern game, and we saw Indiana, play for the next 4 or 5 games much better. So maybe this is one of those kind of turning points where have a couple bad games, turn things back around, start building some positive momentum. That's certainly the best thing that can come out of these last 2 games. All right, that's going to do it for us on this edition of the Assembly Call IU postgame show. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson, who produces a lot of the music that you hear on the show. And thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops again with you on Thursday night and then on Saturday at Switchyard Brewery for the Purdue game. Until then,
take it from me, Yogi Ferrell. Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
Thank everybody for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
Can your mom bring some tiramisu?
Ryan?
She's not bringing tiramisu on the plane.
She's not bringing tiramisu. Coach will be disappointed.
Hey, Mark, are you guys going to do Maui again next year?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We'll be out there.
Awesome.
Well, I'm definitely going to be out there.
Ryan will be there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, so I've done that. I've done that tournament 7 times for work with quotes around it. Yeah, it's like stealing. It is
the best. I'd been to Maui twice before, but obviously not for the tournament. And experiencing the tournament with the like it's because the basketball is the best ever. Like I'm an Indiana guy. I love like a sweaty gym,
small gym.
It's like great. And then you go outside, and you're literally in paradise. It's unbelievable. It's
my favorite sporting like experience. It really
is. I called my mom and dad and brother. I told them you guys all have to come out next year. So I think my dad and brother are both IU grads. I think they're coming out. And Carolina's going to be there. So Tate is going to want to go out too. So we're 100% going to to be there. Yeah.
Nice. I'll take you guys out to dinner or something.
That'd be great. Yeah.
It's
a good time.
But
that's awesome.
The thing about Maui, and I know some of our listeners are considering going, and it's if you can afford it. I know it's expensive, but if you can afford it, it is such a great experience because all the coaches and players are kind of chill because it's early in the season. But once they get on the court, it's like high energy, but they're having fun because it's not like the Final Four where if you lose, it's over. It's like this kind of so the basketball is really fun, and you're right on top of them. It's a high school gym. You're right on top of them. And then again, like you said, you walk outside, even if your team loses, you're like, all right, well, I'm going to the beach.
Right.
That's the rest of my day.
I'll take it a step further. I'd say even if you can't afford it, sell a kidney. Get out there. Man.
Yeah.
Find a way. Like,
you have an extra child you're not sold on yet, just get rid of them.
Yeah. No, it was awesome. I was there for the Kansas State final this year, which is I still think it's the game of the year in college basketball.
That was a great one.
It was unbelievable. It went to overtime. Obi Toppin was insane. Kansas ended up winning. It's I can't like you said, I like it more than the Final Four, honestly. It's more fun to me than the Final Four. So
I'm with you.
Yeah, it's about as glowing of an endorsement as I can leave.
Are you in LA now?
Yeah, I'm in LA, yeah.
Okay. Wasn't sure.
Yeah, I actually didn't watch a second of the game today. I was out surfing all day. So
as a Southern California guy now, he's a fellow Southern California guy now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So for those of you still listening, make sure that you subscribe. Search for Titus and Tate. Subscribe to their podcast. It was rough there for a few weeks when it was gone, but now it's back, which is good. You guys really do an incredible job on that show.
Yeah,
I've emailed you before, but there's such a delicate balance between like calling out college basketball for all of the absurdity, but then embracing it with 2 arms because you love it, and you guys do a really good job balancing.
I will say you said that to me one time, and that was the greatest compliment I ever got. Was that because I think that is the essence of the show. Is like it's like another analogy I'd use is I spent a lot of time in Ohio, and people from Cleveland hate Cleveland. They'll make fun of Cleveland all the time, but the second someone not from Cleveland makes fun of Cleveland, they'll rip them to shreds. I feel like we're like. College basketball is Cleveland, and we're from Cleveland. Like we will make fun of college basketball and all the absurdities and like the dumbest stuff, but we want to make it clear that like we are a part of this group. We love it. This isn't like an outsider. This is like holier than thou, like NBA guy with a blue check mark on Twitter, like calling NCAA basketball slavery, and you're just like, dude, what are you talking about? Like you don't even, like guys like fly in and they watch like one game. And they're like, this is unwatchable. This is the worst. And the players aren't getting paid. This is an atrocity to America. And you're like, dude, get the hell out. I'm not one of those guys when I make fun of it.
It's clear you guys love it.
Yeah. So when you have to get cool. Yeah, that was my favorite compliment we've ever gotten.
We have to get Tate on one time just to get him to do the Coach K impression because we always talk about his Coach K impression on here. Yeah. And we just need the audio clip. Anytime we talk about Coach K, it's
oh man.
He won't do
a walking skeleton with a hairpiece.
We've got lots of drops of Ryan saying things about Coach K.
Oh my! That's former Indiana assistant Coach K.
Yeah, I know.
It is.
He's one of us. One of us. Don't make fun of him. You can't rip on him. He's one of us.
Yeah. One of us.
God. Shoot.
Gosh.
You see Michigan State lost.
They did.
Did they end up losing that game?
They came back.
Wow.
They were down 2 at one point, but Wisconsin hit some shots late. I've got it on in the background.
Wow.
That
is a big win for Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Man.
huge.
But I mean, like I've been saying, like that's the Big Ten this year. Is like it's so annoying. You have no idea what the hell's happening. You have no just when you think you have a narrative, you're like, oh, okay, sweet, Wisconsin, the sky's falling. We can now watch everything unravel in Madison. This will be fun to cover.
Well, Ohio State.
Yeah, what the hell?
Considering what Ohio State was dealing with this week, they played they played focused. I mean, it took them a couple minutes, but they played focused and well. I think the backcourt played really well. With what they're dealing with DJ Carton, and which obviously hope DJ is okay. And
shoot, they said I think like half of our roster is injured in some way, and they're like playing through injury. Everyone is at this point of the season.
Yeah.
Like everything I hear out of everybody I'm talking to is just like everyone's banged up, everyone's tired, everyone's
yeah, it's beginning of February. Yeah.
And oh, by the way, DJ Carton's gone for God knows how long. So anyway, good luck this weekend.
Yeah. Well,
luckily for IU, they have a week off to get Race Thompson back because that guy was just starting.
He's important against Purdue.
Yeah, he was just starting to break through, man. I love he and Hunter will give me hope for like improvement of the roster. It's just like they do things that other guys don't do,
Mm-hmm. Yes, they do. Well, Mark, thank you. We really appreciate you coming on. We'll have to do it again next year. Hopefully Indiana wins one of these. Has Indiana ever won one of these games?
Indiana has won. I remember one year, because it was the last year I cared about NFL. Like I still watch the NFL, but it was the last year I was a fan. I'd grown up a Vikings fan because my dad went to IU. He was roommates with Butch Carter, who's Chris Carter's brother.
Right.
So my dad was like babysitting Chris Carter when Chris Carter was like 6 or 7 or whatever. So fast forward, when I'm growing up, the Colts are terrible right before they get Peyton. And my dad, we'd throw on NFL games. And my dad's like, yeah, Chris Carter, I used to babysit him. And I was like, well, I'm going to cheer for that guy. That seems cool.
Sure.
So I would watch a lot of Vikings games. I became a Vikings fan. And I remember we did a show. It might've been the first time I ever came on here. When Blair Walsh blew the kick.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that.
He blew the kick right after Indiana had beat Ohio State, and Ohio State had like a pretty decent. It was like Indiana and Ohio State were both pretty good, to where it was like the Ohio State loss hurt. And then I watched Blair Walsh blow the kick, and I was like, I'm done with NFL forever. Like I can't watch this.
I remember that on the show. You just kept mentioning like how depressed you were.
I was like, this is the worst day of my life, and I have to do this stupid show. And by the grace of God, I've come back. I can't believe it. I feel like
we're very lucky you have, my friend.
Oh man.
So, yeah, we definitely lost that one. I do remember that vividly.
Okay, so last thing before you get off here, because we have all these players doing these little intros and outros for us. Do you want to do a little keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim and go Hoosiers? Well, you don't want to say go Hoosiers though, probably.
I could say go Hoosiers.
We can do it. Take it from me, Mark Titus. Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim and go Hoosiers, and then we can use it at the end of the show.
Yeah, okay. I'll try it. You want me to go right now?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Take it from me, native Hoosier Mark Titus. Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
Awesome.
That's all right,
Be
right?
you, James Blackman Jr., Yogi Ferrell.
We could just do like 10 minutes of me doing take after take of this, and that'd be great.
And then just play all the bad ones.
Or you can do another. You can do one like Ethan Happ and just say that you like doing the show, but not when Ryan's on.
Yeah. I don't listen. I love that. That was hilarious.
Yeah, because
straight up, do not listen to this.
So
show.
I used to always talk about Ethan Happ traveling. How he just would drag his poo out every time he was in the post. And so they've interviewed him. They got a couple cameos from him being like, no, after my freshman year, I never traveled. It's like, that's a lie.
What's up, Brian? Ethan here. I heard that you were a hater towards my post moves throughout my career at Wisconsin. I know that you think I traveled on basically all my possessions in the post. But I'm here to tell you that I stopped doing it. I don't do it anymore, and I'm sorry to break the bad news, but that's not the case. The refs would have called it.
Yeah, surely would have.
Big Ten refs are great.
I'm sure. He was a good sport, though. We appreciate him.
If you don't call it, it's not a travel. Yeah. Can't fault that logic.
All right. Well, Mark, thank you, man. We really appreciate it. And look forward to listening to your show for the rest of the season. And hopefully Indiana does some stuff to be relevant enough to get on there. That's the worst part about listening to national podcasts is Indiana is so rarely mentioned anymore.
Well, I appreciate that you don't chime in and tell me I have to talk about Indiana. You're better than everyone else who only wants to hear about their team. And if you're not talking about their team,
you hate their team. Clearly.
Well, the irony is I actually listen. I mean, we do so many shows and we talk IU so much. There's a part of me that actually enjoys like listening to college basketball talk that isn't about Indiana. Yeah. So
I want to say that I just gave IU a shout out on the recent show we did. Did you see? They took my idea to recreate the shot. I had this idea. I pitched it to Ohio State, and Ohio State said, "Please leave us alone. Please do not talk to us ever again." To do historic shots instead of doing like a half court shot for $100 or whatever.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You recreate like a shot from history. So I pitched it to Ohio State. I was like, do the Matt Sylvester shot against Illinois, do the Mike Conley floater against Wisconsin. Like I just had all these shots. And then I said that on a podcast one time, and I think one of the marketing people at IU heard it and like they decided to start doing it, and they did the Watford shot.
Yeah, the Watt shot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was so excited. They actually asked me to come do the first one. They wanted to kick the thing off with me. And they're like, we want you to pick a shot and do it. And I was like, that is the most nerve-wracking thing.
No pressure, Mark.
I mean,
you could be the guy who dribbles and hands off to Christian.
Yeah, you could be
Verdell.
But let Tate be Christian.
I was nervous for two reasons. One, like I have to make the shot. But two, I felt like picking the shot was very important to so that'd be my question to you guys is what shot would you pick? Because I was stressing so much over like which I wanted to seem cool. Like I didn't like the Watford shot. Listen, it's a great shot.
The obvious one.
But it's the obvious one. I wanted to be like
for current fan engagement, that would probably be the one because it's going to get people going. You've got the full court. Like if you want to appreciate the subtleties of like the pass, you would go with the Keith Smart, and someone could be Daryl Thomas and make the greatest pass in IU history. Those if you're just going to do it with a single person, you could do Yogi's shot against Iowa that sealed the Big Ten the Big Ten title because you want to do something recent so the young kids get into it.
Oladipo hit a shot from the top of the key against Temple to advance them. You could do like fun things like that. Who was the one who hit was it Odell who hit the against Michigan State as time expired?
Kirk Haston. That would be a good one.
At the Michigan State one, yeah.
I
wanted to do my two ideas were
that was before Ryan's time. Was it?
I wanted to
do it was very before
the Tom Coverdale when he goes coast to coast, misses the layup, and then gets his own rebound, is falling out of bounds and throws it to Jeffries. I just wanted to do the pass. I wanted to do the Coverdale like dribble coast to coast, leave it short on purpose, get the rebound, and then falling out of bounds, throw it to Jeffries. That he did against Duke in 2002. The other idea I had was to do the Jordan Morgan missed layup that gave Indiana the Big Ten title.
Oh yeah.
The other one that would be good is you can go back to Jay Edwards in the '89 season, and he's got the shot over the backboard against Illinois, the three to beat Michigan, and there was one more. Like there were 3 straight games that he hit like a last-second shot, so you could basically make somebody make all of those shots and then realize how ridiculous of a shooter Jay Edwards was.
Yeah,
that would be fun too. Jeez, we need to do all of these. These would all be great.
Great, yeah. Butch Carter hit a shot to beat Purdue in the NIT back in the day in the NIT title game. There's a lot of them, man. But anyway, IU did that. Kentucky fans were pissed off because it was the Watford shot. But I'm excited. I think that's a cool idea, and I hope they keep doing.
That's
it.
Cool.
They do other shots,
that's awesome.
So. Anyway, I can let you guys go. We could
talk
all
day long. Go, man. Enjoy that California sunshine, my friend.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Where are you guys at? Jerod,
I'm in San Diego.
I'm in Dallas.
You are in San Diego, Ryan?
Yeah, I grew up here and moved to Indiana, went to IU, and then moved back about 5 years ago. Have not regretted it since.
Oh, my God. Let's go to
San Diego chicken.
Come down, go to San Diego State. Go to a state game with me.
We should go to a state game. What are we doing?
Awesome. I just tweeted about you. Just follow me and we'll DM.
All right. Sweet. Done and done. All right. Cool guys.
Good to talk to you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Good.
See you in Maui.
Yep. See ya.
Bye, everybody.